Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the organizing to invite me here in front of this audience to speak about the future of computing. I think that before you have already heard a lot about AI, but let me spend 30 seconds on this before moving forward. I don't know if all of you realize that we are in probably the most transformational time for IT since ever. Why am I saying this? Because if you go back, you can find probably two moments in time in which computing really transformed itself and transformed the society in a really big way. I would say the first one, invention of the transistor and then microprocessor, was said before. You know, computers were in few places, it went everywhere. Huge impact. The second one, 30, 40 years later, the rising of internet. Super important because once you have computing everywhere, you connect, right? The law of networks, you go and you are able to create value to the square. Another super transformational time. I do believe that everything in between and after has been an incremental step, not transformation. Think also about, the e-commerce. Without that infrastructure, it wouldn't happen. Even cloud, right? Without processor everywhere, interconnect and internet, you cannot have distributed computing. But I do believe that, in this decade, the new AI that is different than the old one, I will tell you why, and quantum computing are getting mature in the same time. So not one a consequence of the other, but two transformational technologies that are maturing at the same time. Why this is super important? Because if it's possible to understand, eventually regulate and govern a transformational technology itself, it's difficult because it's very fast, right? But it's possible. Two, where the synergies are all to be discovered, is much, 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 much more difficult, okay? And so that is why this new world will have huge opportunities, especially for the financial sector, but also a huge amount of problems or challenges that we will have to solve. So going back to the AI, why I said that it's so transformational. First time we went as AI as application, as AI as a platform. First time where AI was something that you could use to solve very, very specialized problems with a huge investment, but was not broad and was not scaling. Return of investment of AI on that mode was very low. And that was the reason why AI didn't go everywhere. Not for a technology reason, but for a return of investment reason. If to develop a model to detect fraud detection, I need 1 year, and then 2 days after we find 10 different new attacks and the model doesn't work anymore, why I'm doing it? Put a lot of money and I don't solve the problem. Now, with this new AI, you learn directly from the data, your model, and the best representation of your data. And once you have done this scale, of course, you put a lot of money and effort to create the first foundational models in language and other data structure. But once you have done it, you can reuse it in a very efficient way to create, specialized downstream task with a much, much more efficiency. That is the reason why AI, as I was well said before, is going to infuse everything. Every process, every business, whatever we are going to do. Because, it's very easy to use and the return are massive. That is happening. Second things, quantum computing. Why quantum computing is so transformational? People can tell me, look, now is years that we are hearing about that, the full field started many decades ago, and it's mature, it's not mature, it's where we do stand. I have to tell you that in the past 10 years, as you probably realize, the progress that we have done has been enormously, mainly due to our ability to manipulate matters and to do the right devices right, and to package these devices in the right way, okay? And really, the field exploded. But the other side is that for the first time, even if the technology is not at the same maturity of AI, for the first time, we have changed the basic law that we were using to do computing. We have changed the representation of information. You know, it is like you have our world, you have mathematics, that is an abstraction. You take mathematics to simulate something, right? You take this law of mathematics, and you represent that in a series of bits, right, that are 0 and 1, and you work on it. All this process creates a lot of constraints and a lot of limitation. If you change the way you represent the information, you go from bit to qubit, in which, you know, you start to represent the information in a continuous way, in a sphere, with a different type of interaction, with different way to manipulate, you take away some of the constraints that you created in the past. So what is happening is that if the field of applicability of computing was this one, right, it's going to become that one. But it's not only to become larger, it's going to enable certain type of application that were very difficult, if not impossible, in the past, okay, simply because this journey from problem to abstraction to representation was creating a huge complexity behind the algorithm that we're going to use. So you could eventually simulate something, but only at small scale. When you wanted to do this at a realistic scale, you didn't have enough computational time or resources, or computational time or researches to have the right return of investment to solve the problem. So what people have done, our world have done, in all the disciplines, in science, in material science, in healthcare, but also in finance, is to go back and rely on approximate models. We have been speaking about digital twins about everything, but the reality is that these digital twins are very approximate because we cannot create digital twins that are realistic enough for the problem of complexity I was telling you before. So quantum, changing this, okay, is going to make this vision of realistic digital twins for different industries much more accurate, real, and near to us. To have an idea, when I told you, you increase the application fields, you can say, yes, I am doing more, but who cares? If this more is not important, what I'm doing on top, the impact is going to be small. The reality is that the application fields in which where quantum is going to reduce the complexity, are exactly the most important one when you connect to business, when you connect to trying to simulate our world. One, simulating nature, atom, molecules, the interaction of molecules with proteins. That, is something that on a classical computer you cannot do, if not approximating, because scale exponentially. With a quantum computer, eventually you are going to do it with polynomial or linear scales, with high accuracy. Second field that everybody is speaking about is optimization, global optimization of very complex processes. Many of these are in finance, right? Is something that are very difficult to do. You can do only in a heuristic way today with classical computing. There, you will be able to do in a much more accurate way. And you can tell me, yes, Alessandro, thank you very much, but we know already that heuristic optimization works well enough for most of what we are doing. What does it mean well enough? Is a difference of 1%, a difference of 2%? In a field like a normal logistic, that doesn't make a difference. But in finance, imagine if you are able to do 1% better than anybody else in this field. Whatever you take out, you reinvest and then exponentially explode. So you put everybody out of business. And the third field is what you call it, I would say, people are calling it quantum machine learning. I will be a little bit more cautious here. It's using quantum to try to make sense of small but very complex set of data. What you are doing with AI, what you are doing with machine learning is most of the time, is statistically based. So I can find something, I can use a model to find something in a big set of data. If this something, happen many times, and I can find in my data. But if it's something that instead I want to analyze that it happens only once time, easily a singularity, you don't get it, right? So quantum could help us to do this. So that said, when I was telling you at the beginning, AI plus quantum, yeah? It's super important, and I want to put this on the table. It's not only quantum alone, it's AI plus quantum, and it's not AI plus quantum in a trivial way. It's not only trying to use AI to program quantum better, for example. Yes, we can do it. It becomes more productive, better. Or using quantum to do machine learning better for certain data set. That is obvious, it's trivial. But it's to go one step back. We are reinventing the information technology. We are reinventing the way we abstract reality and we represent information. So I do strongly believe that we are really at the beginning, at the dawn of a big era of algorithms. Algorithms and new algorithms that are going to try to bring this way to represent our world together in a more synergistic way will allow us to do things that today we even don't think will be possible. That is something that you have to keep in mind because, as I was telling you before, if we don't do this and if we don't start to think about the synergies of these two worlds, we do risk, especially, in the governance or regulatory body, to be constantly be in a situation in which you are regulating or try to govern the past. And when you are trying to do this, the future is already completely in a different direction. Has always been like this. I know very well that what is changing is the pace at which these things happen. One could get to a situation that you try to solve a problems and you don't even see that there are much larger problems coming up, right? So these two things will allow us to make a huge difference, but we'll have also the side problems connected to. Going back to the financial services and the financial market and business, look, there are trivial things that this new technology together will allow you to do, right? One thing is much better analysis of time series. Time series applied to the financial sector, they were so and so, and we arrive even to the point to say, look, this thing is very stochastic, it's very random, you cannot do it. It simply doesn't work, yeah? It's too volatile. The reality is that this may be true if the way you represent the problem, and that is what we were doing in the past, is to simple, maybe not very simple, mathematical equation that and you map all to those. The new AI, simply analyzing the data, will allow to see emerging new representations that are not the trivial one that mathematics gives first, and then quantum will help you to use this, eventually as an object function to optimize the larger system in a much better way. These are not trivial things. It's not simply take a problem and accelerate. It's rethinking the way you attack a problem, okay? Second thing is fraud detection. Again, it's the same things. Going to something very specific, you have something very general that can continue to learn with time, and you can use quantum to look at the needle in the stack, right, in a much more effective way. So big impact, right? To get to algorithmic trading, okay? Algorithmic trading, probably, I don't know if you have seen it, but just an announcement yesterday by HSBC, that is a financial institution that is working with us, using quantum computing in a pragmatic way, and eventually with some serendipity, they were able to demonstrate that they could get 34% better accuracy in predicting the probability that stock offer get filled, right, at a given price. 34%. Announcement of yesterday. Again, we don't have the proof that, this could not be done with a classical computer, yeah? But you see that the synergy, simply thinking in a different way, bring to advance the field very fast, okay? So many of these things are changing and super, hyper fast, and we do see already some tangible, real results of this revolution coming in. How things are going to move? We, as IBM, but there are many other companies that are following the same direction, we have a roadmap for quantum computing that we have been able to sustain in the past 6-7 years, year by year, okay, that allow us to tell that by next year, we will have the first really time in which we will have a provable, so closed quantum advantage on some application. And by 2030, we will have the first fault-tolerant quantum computing machine. What does it mean? It's a machine that is really implementing universal quantum computing and bring the transformational impact of quantum computing. It's not, 10, 20, 30, 40, it's 5 years, it's this decade. Yeah, so what I told you, this is going to happen now. Doing an additional step, you are a financial institution. When we get to this level, you know very well, we IBM, I started the group that started to study this and create the alternative of crypto that probably are going to be used in the future. But at that point, all the crypto algorithms, yeah, asymmetric cryptography, public key cryptography that allow you to connect in a secure way to the internet, that allow you to do digital signature, that allow you, to transmit data in a secure way, that allow, by the way, to have secure digital currency or digital euros in the future, are going to be attacked and don't work anymore. This is a big change, and now, the understanding that, and of the urgency that one needs to act is much more than a few years ago, but I tell you, we are already late. We are already late. Solutions do exist. Solution to go from what we have today to something that eventually is going to be secure for attack of quantum computing, they do exist, but one has to start now. And not only simply say, I do wait, and then, maybe Alessandro is not right, something will happen, and we will be able to break these things only in 30 years. It's not that the issue. Already today, if there is somebody, and I tell you, there is somebody that is taking the data that are circulated in a encrypted way in the world, in the internet, everywhere, and store and put aside, as soon you will have that, this person is going to go back, take this data, change, and read, eventually even forge digital signature, forge contracts, etc., etc., etc. So that is why, on these particular things of the crypto, okay, that is a side effect of having quantum computing, many, many good ones, right? But a side effect of having quantum computing is time to act now. And by the way, one can act now in a way that we are prepared also to change additional changes in the future. Nobody can ensure that what we have developed now, right, on these quantum safe algorithms is going to remain secure forever. Cryptography, by definition, is not secure forever, right? But at least moving in a direction in which we can introduce something like crypto agility that allow us to migrate from a crypto to another crypto very easily is a unique opportunity. So we will have to do anyway. Why don't do it now? And with this, I stop. I hope that I didn't annoy you, and thank you very much for your time.
thank you so much for that. I'm sure we all learned a lot on that exchange. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and you may need to go back over to the microphone to answer the question, is you talk about the HSBC announcement from earlier, which my colleagues wrote about on Bloomberg, and also about the idea that you can be 1% better than your competitor, which is a big deal in financial services.
Yes.
What I wonder is, to what extent is it a zero-sum game? So you're 1% more efficient, but only for like 10 minutes until everybody else is also 1% more efficient.
That is why, very good question, by the way. That is why in this particular field and where, you know, there are transformational changes as the one that are happening now, the first mover is a big, big advantage. So if you are a first mover, you can get to that point, not to one application, but to a full set of applications. And I told you, there are much more than the one that I mentioned you. And for all these, people will have to invest a lot to arrive to your position. It's not something that you simply say, I have a quantum computer, I put that there, check, I put in the data, look, I have the results, right? It's not going to be like this. The interaction between classical and quantum computer and this own integration is going to be crucial.
Okay, so it's a long-term play. So we should all go out and buy HSBC then.
It's good.
And then one other final question. You're obviously very excited about this topic. When you talk to IBM clients, are they excited? Is there a particular industry where you see more excitement and are there some sectors where people are just like, this is way over my head or probably not relevant for me?
Yeah. Another good question. I do believe, my God, it looks like my mother. Sorry.
That was a dangerous remark to make. Anyway, Alessandro, please carry on.
No, look, it's a wonderful question. And, definitely, you know, when you introduce something so new, the initial investment looks always very big. And at the beginning, most of the days, why now? Not the time, why now? When I'm going to have the return, okay? Do we really need to do it? But with time, especially when you do see the evolution that we are pushing, other companies are pushing, everybody become much more, careful and understand that this first mover advantage. So at the beginning, yes, wait, but then you think twice, yes, can you do something together? And this in all fields. Financial sector, I tell you, is one of the ones that, in my opinion, will be very, very effective, exactly for these things that I told you before. Is a continuum field. Money is a continuum asset, right?
Yeah.
So all the field where you have strong optimization and you have something that is a continuum asset, the impact is going to be enormous.
Okay, listen, thank you so much. I have to let you go now, and not just because you said I look like your mother, but because I have 5 other panelists.